And I probably don't have to introduce myself, but I do it anyway. I'm Elga Rimmer. I'm a curator and a gallery for 27 years, and now I work independently with different galleries and artists whose work inspire me and who are friends partly. And I organized this panel to emphasize the influence of music in art. I would like to introduce first Katya Leonovich. She is the artist of this show, called I Walk the Line. And Katya is Russian-born, lives and works in New York. She was a very influential fashion designer before, but she always painted but didn't show her artwork. So now she's showing her artwork. She listened to music while she painted, like many artists do. Some listen to jazz, others listen to classic music, and she listened to country western music. So now she went a step further and included that in her art. So it's kind of a link between the art and the music, and especially also the sculptures, which are broken down guitars and reassembled in a collage-like way. So Katya will talk about her work as the first. And I'd like to introduce everybody else. Okay, Anthony Haden Guest, who is British American, writer, reporter, cartoonist, art critic, poet, and socialite in between New York and London.
Social heavy.
Okay. He wrote The Last Party, Studio 54, Disco and the Culture of the Night in 1997, in 1998, True Colors, The Real Life of the Art World, and some books on cartoons and verse. One of them is In the Meantime, The Other Ends of the World, Cartoons and Dark Light. And Anthony, as I said, he's an artist himself. He's a well-published writer. I read his essays many years ago in Vanity Fair. He's an influential person in the art world and very connected to art and music and the art world and the music world. And so afterward, I would like to introduce Jean Seidman. Jean Seidman is an art advisor and is born and bred New Yorker. That's important to say because not many are born and bred New Yorkers. He's an art dealer, live auctioneer, cultural ambassador for New York City. Long time ago he worked for Studio 54 and as a graphic designer for MoMA. And he told me this story where he was visiting Ella Fitzgerald at the Radio City Music Hall and sang a duet with her in the dressing room. So his connection to music and art is very strong. And actually I invited also his brother Billy Seidman, who is a known music producer and songwriter in Nashville, now in New York. And he would have been a good addition to the show, but he couldn't make it, so he's here in spirit. And Mark Bloch. Mark Bloch just recently did a very interesting show called Mail Art at the NYU on Washington Square, which has a collection of downtown collections and archives. Nobody really collected the ephemeral art of the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. It was performance, it was theater, it was fluxes and post-fluxes and mail art and demonstrations. So all of this is documented now at this archive of NYU, which is very important. And he's a writer, as I said, he's an artist, and he's a pan-media artist. He was a DJ for experimental avant-garde music, so every artist is also involved in music. And you know, as the Grammys were even presented by Mick Jagger for the best sound in a film, and he said art and music influences the world. So I agree with him. So Katya, would you like to say some words about your show, your inspirations and your thoughts on the show in particular, and the influence of music in art in general?
Shall I sit or shall I stand?
As you like.
What is the...
As you like. As you like.
What is the dress code?
I will sit.
You know, now it's in politics.
You can sit. You can sit.
Okay. Well, music. You know, I have a studio in 6th Avenue between, let's say, 20th and 21st Street, and 6th Avenue and 21st Street between 6th Avenue and 7th Avenue is a cemetery, a Jewish cemetery from 18th century. You know, Jews was deported from Portugal, and nobody anymore buried there. But it's closed, but it's protected by New York State. So even 7th Avenue or 6th Avenue very noisy. But when I come to my studio, I have a cemetery out of my windows, and I am completely silent, like a white noise. Okay, but to feel this empty space with the music needs something more. So let's say, if I do figurative, country music really helps. It's about the stories, the people, adventures and stuff like that. This is figurative. This is real stuff. If I do abstraction, it's better like Miles Davis, Beecher's Brew, for example, or some ambient music from Japanese musicians, something like that. So I want to fill my studio with something. It helps. Now I'm doing sculptures. Yes, I'm listening now to Miles Davis again. Because there is an unusual twist there and here, and I say, yeah, not to be too proper. Okay, he twists this and he contradiction and stuff like that. Okay, so yeah, good guy, great guy. So it helps. So this is what the practical part of this. I don't want to go to philosophy or some more complicated. I just, I'm a carpenter. I'm just working person. And I see friends around, yeah, musicians, yeah, we're all together. But, you know, sound and brushstroke, or when I'm making sculpture, it's a different, but it's not. We're all in the same team. We're all in the army of artists. You know, we're strange people, we influence each other, and so why not? Let's do it, you know? I have a game, you know? I have a lot of, you know, DVD in my house of different movies. And my husband, he said, okay, let's watch some movie. I said, listen, don't tell me what the movie is. But movies always they have a music, no? So he put the movie, I close my eyes, and I say, oh, this is a Coming to America. Because da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, the lines in tonight. So I recognize the music just from first 2 seconds. So it's a musical memory as well. I don't know how it comes, but so I'm raised So this is what is going on. That's it.
Well, okay, who wants to talk next? Mark.
Well, I'll say something, which is about your guitars over here. I saw this show earlier, and I remember that it was mostly men with guitars. Do you have any women playing the guitar in this show?
No, men.
Men
All
are
men.
on the canvas. Women are here.
I see. Are those the women? Women are sort of, guitar shapes. So.
It was done by this. It was created by this. It was born like this.
I see. No, but it made me think of that immediately. So I immediately thought of these early Picasso guitars. I think some of the first time the art began to lift off the two-dimensional surface, was using a guitar. So he used cardboard also, and yeah, they look a bit like that. And so I just thought of that right away, and I forgot. I was thinking of their canvases, but then when I came tonight, I was reminded. Oh yeah, he looked very similar to what Picasso was doing.
Yeah, it's kind of old-fashioned style.
Yeah, it's a bit a modernist,
Yeah, I
Right?
yeah.
They're like Cubist sculptures,
Right.
right? I mean, they're definitely Cubist sculptures, and I like that they're monochromatic.
Well, you follow because all the information is inside, in your files in your brain, If you know the art history, you can't help. Sometimes it came out,
The one, I think the flat one there on the pedestal is Dali. Is that Dali for Dolly Parton?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Dolly Parton's.
The sculptures are named after
So
known
Dolly-
female country western singers.
Oh, so that's why you meant they were women. I
Dolly
see.
and Henry Lou and which was the third one? Dolly and Anyway, they're all named after country
So
western singers.
Dolly Parton's husband happened to die yesterday.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that well known, he never did an interview, but the story, so you're celebrating women, and I love the curvaceous nature of the monochromatic and cubist, but his name, so he had an affair sort of with his bank teller, and the bank teller's name, he would always go to the bank, and like Dolly was like, what's going on? Her name was Jolene. And one of the most famous
Jolene.
country songs is Jolene. It was like, what the hell is going on with you and Jolene? And they were able to survive that. But it's so music, and then you're celebrating her here. So I just thought it was a coincidence of history that you have Dolly Parton, her husband died, and Jolene was about this.
Because I was fashion designer, I was always in trend. Maybe somehow I am in trend now. I can trend.
Yes.
Okay, Mark, so you were saying about...
Well, that's all. I mean, I thought of that, and then I was thinking of other things. I have some notes that I wrote, but I was just thinking of not so much of like artists working and listening to music, although that's certainly something that everybody does and that we all do. And while we're on that topic, I have to say that I not stopped listening to music, but I got away from listening to music. When I think of my early work when I was very young, like even still in college, it's all about music. I loved this David Bowie album Heroes when it came out, and I have some paintings that were related to that and other things. But then not right away, but years later, I just stopped listening to music. And I realize now, because my son apologized to me, I have a kid, and he's kind of a gifted kid, or he was a gifted kid, and there's that book, the drama of the gifted child, that we're all gifted, we should all get a gifted education. But we deserve one, you know. But my son actually got one, which made me very happy. But one of the things about him was, he's not that unusual or off the, you know, on the spectrum or whatever, but he was very sensitive to music. So when we used to put on music in the car, he'd freak out and say, turn it off, turn it off. So I think that's why I stopped listening to music, you know, when I was like a father for maybe about 10 or 15 years. And now I don't, you know, I don't give myself that privilege, you know. It's a great thing. I recently heard a scientist on TV, somebody asked him, like, what can we do to change our mood? I can't remember what it was. They were talking about like blood chemistry. I can't remember what chemical they were talking about, endorphins or which one. But the guy's answer was music. Like one of the ways that you can change your blood chemistry, that's the easiest and probably the most effective is through music. So I'm depriving myself by not listening to music. You know, like I do get depressed sometimes, so I never think of music as something that could help me, you know, get me out of my funk or out of procrastinating or whatever.
Well, next month we'll have a panel on music and psychotherapy.
That's a good point.
That's
Music and
I'm sure you
psychotherapy.
can find.
Can I make a point?
absolutely,
Yeah,
please do.
In the mornings I dance rock and roll.
In the morning you dance rock and roll.
6 hours a week, an hour.
I was just
And
gonna say,
let's roll song.
I was gonna introduce you as the Mick Jagger of the arts.
It's very polite, but not true. And most rock songs repeat the same thing again and again and again. And I keep on thinking of Soul of Wit. You know, it seems to me repetition is a big weird thing in the art world that's insufficiently being addressed, the importance of repetition. And Walter Pater, who was famous 19th century art sage, who invented the tag art for art's sake, which inspired the decadent movement, also said all art aspires to the condition of music. What he quite meant by that, I don't know. That's what music is at the fact. But I stole that line, by the way, or I pilfered that line from a recent good article about art and music in the New Yorker, which also taught me that James McNeill Whistler called the Nocturnes after a series of Chopin, and that Paul Klee had been a violin prodigy when young. And stuff like that. You know, I think this is the arts do. I'm not gifted musically, but I love playing music. You know, and I think we don't want to trap in one single art form.
So I'm a dancer, also a ballroom dancer, and I work at Studio 54, so I have my amount of dancing. But you were talking about Chopin nocturnes. So James McNeill Whistler, if you look at it a little historically, Whistler listened to Chopin nocturnes when he painted, and piano compositions. And Pierre Mondrian, you know, Boogie Woogie, and was listening to jazz in the 20s. And part of his grid, the reason why he did grid was he was in New York, he was listening to jazz, and New York is basically a grid. Kandinsky, you know, Schoenberg,
Broadway Boogie Woogie.
yeah, Broadway Boogie Woogie.
Famous Bloch on
Exactly. Paul Klee, Bach rhythms, Keith Haring, hip hop of the 80s. Matisse listened to Bach and Beethoven, and his dance was influenced of that. And Alvin Ailey, if you move over to dance, he was greatly influenced by gospel and also Duke Ellington. So music sort of goes around, and whenever you go to an artist studio, they always have, you know, a little Bluetooth speaker, and they're usually just full of paint. And
Well, if you talk about dance and music, Martha Graham is the perfect example. She was actually dancing around Calder sculptures and many other artists who were her contemporaries. They actually worked together. The choreography was about the artwork.
Yeah, and Merce Cunningham made a ballet or something to Jasper Johns made these beautiful sets using Duchamp's large glass, making giant, parts of it, and then the dancers would move around within that. That's exactly what I was thinking of, stuff like that, what you were saying. I was thinking also of Eric Satie as a piece, three movements or three parts in the shape of a pear, and just the idea of moving back and forth between different media, like how do things sound, how do they look, I think it's a normal thing in the arts, I thought of two words that were very important to me and just in general in this topic is, one is intermedia, which Dick Higgins of Fluxus used that word to describe any media that's between two other media. So, and it was very popular in the 60s when he coined that phrase to Dick Higgins, the guy who was a Fluxus publisher and artist and musician, and in fact he was the quintessential intermedia artist.
Yeah, performances of Namjoon
Of?
Pai.
Right. So at that time in the 60s, when he coined that phrase, that's when a lot of boundaries between different art forms broke down. So first there was painting, and then there was music. It's like, so then they thought, what would be in between like painting and music? And you could either create a genre or would naturally evolve, like happenings came along, or whatever. It could be anything from like playing chess by mail to art forms that fit in the cracks between other art forms, or in between theater and poetry, or poetry and art, or whatever. And then the other word was Gesamtkunstwerk, which is total artwork. So artists would try to create an art using as many media as they could. In all the media.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned it, because Katya's influence in her sculpture were like Claude Schwitter's, the Meeresbau, and Schwitter's assembled whatever objects he could find in his studio. So the studio became a work of art.
Yeah.
So, just with the objects assembled, reassembled, and playing between them.
Then he started nailing them down and making them into like architecture. Like we went
Yes.
from being sculpture to architecture.
It reminds me of the Rite of Spring, the opening of the Rite of Spring that happened. Diaghilev came to Paris in 1906, 8, and he hired with Nijinsky, the dancer, and it was at the opening of the Paris Opera. It's a great story, and the Bohemians were there, Picasso and his crowd, and the aristocrats, the French aristocrats were there, and Diaghilev, for the Ballet Russe, had hired this unknown young composer, a guy named Igor Stravinsky. And the Rite of Spring, when it started, right, the music started, and it was a cacophony, and the Bohemians loved it, and the aristocrats were like, this is not music, and this is terrible, and they started throwing things at each other in this elegant new opera house. It's a great scene, and Stravinsky was up in a box, and he rushed down to be on stage, and he had to count, and he had to count so the musicians could keep the rhythm. So that's a great case of like art and dance and social interaction. That was great. The show went on, but it was a crazy night at the opera.
One major difference between painting, art, and music is, of course, the performative element. And art, when you make painting, you're to some extent performing, but not in public. And there's a wonderful a turning point in Jackson Pollock's life was he was being photographed by the German photographer Hans Neyman. And he decided, he was painting in his own way, or the painting was flat on the ground. He decided he was performing, and he hated it. He got up to dinner, he overturned the dinner table. And that was basically where the career ended. Trevor Greenberg said Jackson lost his stuff. But at the same time, the painters of L'Art Informel which is the Paris equivalent of the abstract expressionists, they loved performing. And one of them, I forget, one of the main ones, had a band in the background. Eve Klein, when you had his paintings done with Cuban paintbrushes, which I regret to say was naked females covered with Klein International Blue, and he had a musician singing the single monotone for 20 minutes in a 20-minute silence. In the late 50s, 1960s, art and music were one, and that was when happenings were happening. That was also when performance art was being invented. So,
You know, there's also there's a very cool disease called synesthesia. It's an affliction where, you have it for it? So synesthesia is where you can either hear music and paint it, or translating it visually, or in another case, you could, I know a woman here moved to New York recently, a young painter, and she can think of the month of January or a number and paint that. And she just has that liquid ability to just translate that in her mind and in words into a visual thing. Which leads me to your paintings, because whatever music you're listening to, you know, when I saw them online and when Elvis sent them to me and I looked at them, I was like, okay, these are good looking. But when I walked in here and they're well lit, they come alive, and you can just see like the color, the saturated colors are dancing, and they're painterly, but not like with an impasto. They're blended, almost like a pastel or charcoal, and the hands and the feet are, you know, exaggerated. El Greco, or the hands of, you know, well-known, you know, painters. And I just find the light, you know, it doesn't always make sense, the light, but it's like the light's hitting him on that side and the light's hitting him on that side. But I like them. I'm drawn in by the color of the figures, but also the background colors that are very saturated and alluring. So it was a different experience looking at online versus looking at painting. And you know, the thing about looking at painting,
I'm good online. That's why it's better to see.
It's better IRL.
Yeah.
Everything's better IRL.
When your brother came the other day, he go around and they say, you know what, online, yeah. But then when I look again and again, I like it even better than the first glance. You know, because I'm telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling the story that you want to see this story, and you want to, you go with the details and things. You know, it should be. It should be not in the internet. Maybe I should cancel.
Do you protagonists in the painting, are they from your mind, or do you work from a photograph, or is it just imagined in your mind? You have someone in mind when you're painting these men?
Listen, I'm doing a lot of research before. So to create this story of these country musicians, of their lifestyle, and how actually they, you know, if you see, they're playing. So my husband playing guitar, so I asked him to pose to me. So yes, I was doing a photograph of some models, my husband, maybe something from internet. I printed it out and put it as a reference. And then I use my imagination and change everything. I mean, change a lot. So it's like a reference, you know. Even now, you know, abstract painters, they print some photographs and they just use it as a reference, as a color match or something like that, and create something else. So we are living in a different world. We are not living in the world of, you know, Freud, that he has a model and model pose and he was painting. So now we can have, you know, some photographs, mixing it together, changing everything and use it as a reference. And of course, it's not photorealistic because it's no projection there. They are not perfect. They're all modified. You know, they're credible. You know, you believe it. Yeah, this is.
They're
right,
more
yeah.
than credible, and you know, if you look at works by Matisse, you know, his anatomy was terrible. Or Degas. I mean, when Degas showed the Petit Danseur, 14 ans, you know, in 1881, the critics said, "You don't know anything about the anatomy. You're a pedophile. You never showed another sculpture again."
But I
These
say,
are credible.
I say, why not? You know, why you need to smash it in order to create some mood or something? Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I love the form, you know, I love the construction. You know, the finger, you have this bone, then you have this bone, then you have this bone, you know, and then you get to the end. So, you know, and with all this position, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, bones, and then, and this is the beauty of this. Why should I just smash it and do abstraction or half body, half not, that nowadays a lot of guys do it, and sometimes their bodies looks like a hot dogs, you know what I mean? I like construction. I like the knee. What is beauty about the knee? A beauty about this? You see the bones go, and then it goes little, that's tiny more, but there, here. And then it's here and here and here. And
But also you, I think what you're saying about seeing them in person is, that's all true, what you just said, but then you are doing your interpretation of it on this canvas, and so it's like, it's on the canvas and we can see it, you know, it's like a physical property, like you said, it's not intellectual, it's, actually moving paint around.
yes, because I'm an animal myself.
Right, and you're a physical
An
being.
animal want
You're
to
a
see
thing.
animal, like a dog want to see dog, and people want to see people.
Right.
You know, when I put an
People that are
Instagram,
in three-dimensional
No.
and four-dimensional
Yeah,
space want to
psychologically.
see things in four-dimensional
yes,
space.
psychologically, you know, when I put an Instagram some abstract, like, when I put like myself with somebody, just 10,000, you know, likes. People want to see people. This is, it's strange, but we're all animals.
Katya, I don't know how you're going to take this, given where you come from, but I put in mind of the vivid, the muscularity of the work, reminds me of the social realism that came into, but a rather more cheerful and jolly version.
They were rude. I'm not rude. I'm elegant. And also I'm
Remember,
fashionable.
Leonovich ended up painting those.
Yeah, but if you will see and compare to, no.
I'm not saying if that's the way, but
They were like-
the amount of masculine male figures.
Yeah, but my masculine is different.
You know, speaking of,
It doesn't
so,
say it's the same, it's just that, you know, some of these male bodies.
Well, they have a political
figures,
sure. It
yeah,
was a
yeah.
political.
We're very used to looking at naked women.
Mine is like from
Not
male
looking
to
at naked
male.
men, you know.
so if you take your piece in the other room, the three muses, right? Instead of three women, right? It was Terpsichore, Erasmo, and Cleo
Mhm.
for dance, lyric, poetry, and history, right?
Yeah.
Like you depicted them as three men. Like when you think about Canova, right, who sculpted the three muses in brilliant marble, right?
Yes.
You've a modern, you've changed the gender and put it all on its head, and I love that. I love that you took the three muses, made them men in a very modern context. And
Yeah, that's why not? Why
no,
not?
No, I think it's great. I'm
They were
saluting.
painting us, and I'm painting them. I mean, you.
Yeah. So here's to the three muses.
Yes, until yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I'm straight. You know, I mean, I love men. So what can I do?
Page them.
And I think
Anyway, this note, I thank all the panelists and Audience, all of the audience?